Looks like we're recording. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Curtain. Well, it's the first Thursday of the month, so you know what that means. We're talking market update, market stats, and what happened in February of 2022. But first of all, let me kick it over to Scott. What's up, brother? Good morning, afternoon. How you doing?
What's going on, man? To you live from our new office. I'm pulling a little Zach Galifianakis. I got not two ferns, but two plants here, and kind of frame my shot. And I'm excited to dive into stats. We're also going to introduce a little bit of a more detailed breakdown on the stats and show the people some actual real live numbers. So I'm excited for it. Let's jump into it. Talk some numbers.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, sounds like we're both kind of stumbling on our words today, but we're going to do the best we can to get through it. So let me just share my screen here. So, I mean, one thing is, I think is not a huge surprise to a lot of people is it's still a seller's market, right? So let's see what those numbers look like. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So we know that active listings, right? So we're looking in the entire New Jersey MLS for February 2022 as compared to February 2021. Scott, why don't you take us through this slide?
So what I think we agreed on was that, right? Like just moving forward now and in the future, what we want to present is just, it's still a seller's market. Yes, it's still tough out there for buyers. But let's start really diving into and looking at like what is the reality of where does the market stand? So last year at this time, when the market was also considered to be super hot, there was 2,460 homes actively listed on the New Jersey MLS at the end of February. Now flash forward to the end of February 2022, we're down to 1,714 active listings. So we saw that number fall off by over 700. And did you have the actual percentage?
Yeah, so that's down 30%. And this is as of the end of, February 28th of 2021 compared to February 28th, 2022. So as of right now, year over year, day over day, we're looking down 30%.
So 30% reduction in the total active listings out there available for a buyer shopping at the end of February last year to this year. Now what we look at is, and where you would hope like maybe the number is significantly lower to kind of balance that, is the under contracts. So at the end of February 2021, 1,189 listings were under contract compared to this year, 1,049. So that number is definitely a little bit lower, but it's not in coordination with how much lower it should be based on how much fewer homes are on the market. So that's part of where we're seeing this real crunch for buyers, because less inventory and almost the same amount of homes under contract means that buyer demand is still sitting there pushing up, dying to get into a house, and the listings just aren't there, right?
Yeah, and I think what that also means, I mean, that's down 11.7, almost 12% compared to the active listings, which are down 30%, which to me tells me that this time last year, people weren't willing to settle on certain types of homes in certain locations. And I hate to use the word settle, but, in this market, those homes that were maybe would have sat on the market a little bit longer are maybe now starting to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is something, we don't even have a number to present on that, but I do know just anecdotally that like looking around, it's super interesting to see that right. We know that most houses that we're looking at, that prime inventory, we're telling our buyers, like once it hits the market, expect that after that first weekend, we're probably going to see like that best and final come out, right? Now, what I'm seeing though is even listings that were sitting on the market 30, 60, 90, 120 days, boom, now those are starting to get scooped up because it's like, hey, if there's nothing coming on new, let's go revisit some of those other homes that might have been overlooked in the first place. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit more, but
it's like, you know what, I'll take on the project of doing the kitchen. I'll take on the project of, painting the bathroom, whatever it is, because just need to get in something. And with rates going up too. So let's shift over to sold units. So again, sold units for 2021, 2,460. Sold units in 2022, 1,714. So that's down 17.8%. I mean, that makes sense, right? If there's less homes on the market, there's less homes that are going to sell. So no real surprise there. And then we look at months of inventory. Now, what we say in the industry is a balanced market, meaning there's enough supply to meet the demand, is about 6 months of inventory, right? Do you agree with that? So we've been in a seller's market for years. This is not new. But 1.9 down to 1.5 months. I mean, that's low. That's low. That's as long as that number is under, or, significantly under 6 months of inventory, you're in a seller's market.
And just for anybody who doesn't totally grasp this, because Pete and I had talked about this, where it's like, to me, months of inventory is like almost the one market indicator that could really tell a big story about what's going on in the market. And so you mentioned like 6 months of inventory being balanced. And what that essentially means is just that months of inventory is, if no other homes came on the market from this date forward, how long would it take to sell the homes that are currently on market? And so when you're looking at 1.5 months of inventory, that means, again, it would be like a feeding frenzy. If no more homes hit the market, the buyers are going to snatch them up and they would be gone. There would be no more homes for sale in 1.5 months. And we really do want to see that number closer to a balanced, 6 months. So 1.5 months, we were talking last year about 1.9 months being historically low. That number's only creeped lower.
And it's also at the pace at which they're selling, right? How quickly they are selling, which also comes into play, right?
Yeah. So what's our last? We do have one other stat in here, right?
Yeah. So our median sale price and our average sale price. Why don't you take this one?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to start with our average sales price, because average sales price jumped from 609,763 last year to 653,071 this year. So on your average sales price, you saw what, like 9% growth there, close to 10%?
Yeah, we're at 7% increase on average sale price.
7% growth on the average sales price. But sometimes the average doesn't really tell the whole story. So you like to look at that median sales price number too, and just kind of reconfirm, like, hey, does this make sense? Because again, we talked about, like, there was more units that sold last year, so your average could be thrown off by that. But when you look at the median sales price, 2021, 495,000 compared to 2022, 530,500. Do you have the percentage on that?
I'm just double checking to make sure I didn't just write down the same number twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, 7%. Yeah. So it's a 7% increase.
So you're 7% on both average, median. So that, to me, again, is just kind of reaffirming the fact that, like, that growth is real in the year over year. And again, keep in mind, we're talking every single listing residential in the New Jersey MLS. So we've seen certain pockets of home prices go up even more than 7%. And there's probably other pockets that maybe haven't seen that full growth. But again, in a normal year, you're hoping that home sales grow, home sale price grows by like 3 to 4%. So to be at 7 on average and median, like, we're blowing out what is traditionally known as, solid growth. This is great growth for a home sale.
Yeah, it's significant, right? I mean, it's beyond significant. It's to the point where it's almost, what is happening? And I think we hear a lot, that conversation. Are we in a bubble? And we'll talk about that in a minute. But also, just for frame of reference, there's been some conversation about interest rates and where they are. So just like to give you an update, we're hovering around 4.25, 4.35, somewhere there. I think about a week or 2 weeks ago, in my experience from being out in the market, was some of the most activity I've seen on listings and people competing. And I think a lot of that was fueled by the fact that rates actually went down a tick with the war that's going on over in Europe. We saw them come back down to about 4%, not for very long, went right back up to about 4.25. So that's about where we are this week. But any mortgage lender you're speaking to will tell you that it's volatile. They're changing up and down, and every single day. And the Fed meets March 16th. So, we should have a better idea of where rates are going to go, come mid-March. And one thing I was looking at a report too, because now we're in this mix right now, right? With everything that's going on in Russia, gas prices are going up, and are we heading into a recession? Are we in a recession right now? And what does that mean for home values? And one of the reports I was watching, and I don't have the chart, but it was actually really interesting. And we didn't even talk about this, Scott, but it actually showed, on a graph, moments in time going back to like 1950 where the US economy was in a recession. And in almost every time period that happened, home values either stayed flat or increased, with the exception of 2007, 8, 9, that recession. And I think the big indicator, or what I took out of that chart, is that was the housing bubble causing the recession, as opposed to the recession causing the housing bubble. And I think that's an important distinction to make, as I think, for a buyer right now and a seller, you're kind of betting, right? You're kind of, if you're thinking of selling, but you're waiting, what are you waiting for? I mean, are you waiting for home values to skyrocket? I mean, because they've done that. They're doing that now. And if you're a buyer, that short-term buyer, it's a little bit more of a conversation, but that long-term buyer, if you're ready to get into a house, why are you're I think you're gambling, saying, I'm going to wait until home values come down, because all the professionals that I watch and I study, no indication of that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, it's tough. And I know until we shift over to our YouTube format one of these days, I don't want to stretch this out too much longer, but I think you said basically that if you're a home seller, what are you waiting for? And I think maybe next week who should be listing their home right now, right? I think there is a target group of people that should really be thinking about selling their house now. And if you're a home buyer, that same old adage applies, right? If you're buying, you mentioned short term, I do think that's where you've got to have a little bit more of a conversation with a home buyer about what decision they're making. But the old adage applies here, is if you're going to buy a home and hold on to that home, that means you live in it, you can move out and rent it out. If you hold on to it for any 10-year period of time over the course of history with home prices, you're going to be okay. So don't wait on rates. Don't wait on, a shift in the market downward. Get out there and find a great home for yourself, because there's no point in playing that waiting game, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I feel like I can hear the buyers watching this already being like, I'm trying to find a home, just somebody help me find it. But, there's a lot of different things that your buyer's agent can do to help you find homes. And if they're just not, give us a call. We can explain some of those things. So anyway, with all that, yeah, I mean, you and I are working every single day to find our buyers homes and off-market opportunities. And again, that's a whole nother conversation. If you want to learn more about what we do to help our buyers find homes, give us a call. And if you have questions, maybe maybe you want to know more specifically what's going on in your county or your town specifically, we can get you that information. And if there's something that you just want to talk about, have questions on, give us a call. We're happy to help.
Yeah. So for this week, from behind the curtains between two houseplants, I'm Scott. That's Pete. And we will catch you guys next week.